And all right. Thank you everyone for joining CyberQP's first birthday party. We're excited to celebrate with all of you.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
What do you guys think? Has it felt like it's been a year since we've, been CyberQP officially? What do you think? It's gone by fast, slow? What are your thoughts, Jim?
It's gone by very quickly.
Yeah.
The older you get, the quicker time goes by.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I think I joined almost 2 years back, and it's pretty fast. Like I feel like I just joined.
Yeah, for me,
Yeah,
I'm
we're all
just over 2 years myself, and I could say the same thing. Definitely flew by.
Yep, for sure.
And I think we're all of us at the Kaseya Connect IT show last year where we launched the rebrand. Were we all there? And
I wasn't there. I was back at the office making domain changes, so all of our email and everything worked,
yeah.
I think Robbie and I were there for the big announcement, and we had a nice little megaphone there for at the show, so that was exciting.
Yeah, we had the silk cheetah print button ups. I think I still have mine in my closet somewhere.
That's
Keeping
the
that
best for it because I'm not sure I can get away with wearing that outside my house.
keeping that as a little memory here. So want to again thank you all for joining. We'll give everyone a couple more minutes to file in here, but we are going to start our birthday celebration off with the prize. I feel like that's the only way to do it. The first thing we're going to be giving away is, let me actually open the chat up. I feel like the chat is not open. Let's see here. Attendees can chat with everyone. Boom. Let us know where you're calling in from. The chat is now open. There we go. I was wondering why I was so quiet in here.
You didn't
Awesome.
let anybody in.
Got the chat going. So let us know where you're calling in from. We're going to give away our first prize in just a few minutes. Going to be giving away the Garmin S42 golf watch. So pretty cool watch. You can upload the courses that you're playing onto it. You can check if it's a par 3, par 4. I don't know if we have any big golf guys or girls in the chat right now.
Looks like we got Abbotsford in here, New Jersey, Boston, Montreal, Cookeville, Vancouver. Lots of great people here.
And so I've got Daniel in the background kind of getting through all the attendees and randomly generating a prize winner. So Daniel, you send over that randomly generated winner and we're going to announce it right here.
So was that Robbie picking that, or you wanted me to pick it?
Oh no, Daniel's in the back. He's on the webinar. Daniel is in the chat right now. I'm just waiting on his little message here. All right, we've got okay. So the winner of the Garmin S42 watch, before we get started, is Justin Porras from Dallas, Texas. Congratulations to Justin.
Way to go, Justin.
And I do want to mention, so we have two more. There you go. Awesome. Yeah. Hope you enjoy that. I do want to let you guys know. So we have two more prize giveaways throughout the webinar. The next giveaway is going to be a little bit later on, right before we do our little security operations update. And that's going to go to the most engaged attendee in the chat. So, while we're going through Jim's startup story, while Brian is going through our threat briefs, incident insights, the transparency CyberQP is having with their security, be sure to ask questions. And you can win our second prize, which is actually going to be a 28-bottle wine cooler / refrigerator. So with that, we're going to hop into the content. I'm not cool enough to be on this slide, so I'm going to pass it over to Jim. How about you introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. I'm Jim Jessup, COO and co-founder of CyberQP. Been in the industry for about a quarter century now. Excited to be here and tell you a bit more about my story.
Quarter of a century. That's hard to compete with. Brian Milbeer, Vice President of Information Security here at CyberQP. Been with the company for almost 2 years. Been in the security industry for probably close to a quarter of a century, but it sounds a lot longer when you say that. So
Hey, everyone. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Robbie. I lead the product team at CyberQP. I've been with the company for 2 years now, but I've been building products for the last 10 years. My role here is to basically work at the design teams, engineering team, and I talk to a lot of partners weekly. And that's my day to day. Later today, I'll show you a demo of a brief demo of our product. So looking forward to that.
We've got some new, never before seen things coming from Robbie today. So definitely stay tuned. But now we're going to hop into the startup story, right? So Jim, this is where I'm going to call on you, kind of interrogate you a little bit. A lot of people know you from CyberQP. They've seen you on stage at the big events, or even from QuickPass, right? But a lot of people don't know is that you actually owned and ran your own MSP. So can we let us know, when did you start that, and how did you decide you wanted to get into IT?
Yeah, so definitely two different answers. Started the MSP back in 2011, so I guess that's about 13 years ago. Ultimately exited in 2019 to a larger MSP in the Vancouver area called Fully Managed, now owned by a telecommunications company called TELUS. So I feel very bad for all my customers now, unfortunately. That's kind of the equivalent of Verizon buying your MSP. So kind of you can make your conclusions on that. And then how did I get into IT? I mean, now we're kind of really going back into the early to mid 90s. I was always very fond of technology all the way back to getting our first computer at our house, which was a IBM PC Junior in 1984 with floppy disks. We would play King's Quest on a keyboard and type in the commands. So definitely that was a lot of fun. But kind of dating back and getting into college, I was always really fond of math and technology. And at that time, for any of you who have been around back then, remembered that that was kind of when Microsoft was definitely kind of getting big in a lot of this IT certifications when Windows 95 came out, Windows NT, etc. And there were a lot of opportunities for systems administrators, network administrators. So I thought that that was exciting and went into computer science, followed by taking a bunch of MCSE certification courses so that I could get my first job as an enterprise IT manager for a manufacturing company.
And so, Jim, you were using MSP and the term MSP with your explanation there. I know that we did a MSP startup story on this before, so I kind of have some timeline knowledge on that. Around the 2007 mark, when you were, getting into selling your services as a product, moving away from the break fix company, was the term MSP being used?
Very good question. So after I kind of had my first job across the street from us, somebody I went to high school with owned what at that time was referred to just like an IT support company or outsourced IT support. And everything was done by the hour, break fix, project work. They were storing an inventory of everything, etc. And I started out with them in 2007, initially as a senior engineer, and then eventually ended up managing them. But getting back to the point about, whether they called it MSP, they essentially had purchased at the time, Kaseya VSA, and didn't really know at the time what to really do with it. And I found it fascinating that the whole concept of not only having an RMM to proactively manage all of our endpoints, but the concept of actually selling it as a product and, effectively that's what they, the term was coined around that time of an MSP, but it was still kind of in its infancy. So we had to transition from really going through that break fix using some homegrown PSA to starting to leverage, policies, processes, and packaging all the services up as a product. And really right after that was kind of around that time was when it started to kind of pick up a lot more. We started to use ConnectWise PSA, or at the time it was just called ConnectWise. But it was a really exciting time just to know that, you didn't always have to wait for somebody's system to break before you could actually, provide services for them, right?
And so at this time point, are we officially Affinity now? Are we officially the Affinity MSP?
So that was actually the MSP that I initially was managing. So I initially
Right.
started as a senior engineer. So it went through a few different names. The original name was Shorebridge Technology Group, and then it was bought by a company called Uniserve Communications, and I was managing what they called Uniserve Professional Services. Yeah, so that's where we had the MSP, and that's essentially where most of my initial clients came from, which is sort of where the transition came from working and running that MSP to starting my own with one of the other guys at the company there.
And so I think that's a good point to touch on here. You know, running an MSP with another individual or having like a business partner within your MSP. I'm sure a lot of MSPs listening now maybe have a business partner that they know and they trust. How did that relationship go? Can you kind of walk us through what that was like?
Yeah, so first I'll touch on kind of how we, started the MSP. I mean, I was running that MSP with Uniserv Professional Services, and at that time it was also a bit of a telecommunications company that had kind of taken over, and they just didn't really know how to, run an MSP or really understand the business very well. And so what was happening is that had the impression that our customers weren't really serviced as well as we thought they could be. So, one of my other senior techs and I ended up deciding to start our own MSP. Now, it was a bit of a leap of faith, but fortunately for us, we were able to convince a significant portion of our customers to join us at this new venture. And surprisingly, I didn't end up missing a paycheck. Obviously, I had to take a bit of a pay cut temporarily, but it was quite a nice transition to be able to do that. And now that partner, to answer your question there, it was great to kind of get started because he had a lot of great relationships with a lot of our customers, and that's typically why MSPs do well, is if they have great relationships with their customers. However, on his side of it, he could never really get over the break fix and the project work and get into, convincing, our partners or customers at the time that, he was managing to be able to move over to a contract, to an MSA and pay a monthly fee. And that ultimately ended up creating a lot of friction between the two of us where I was trying to build an MSP practice and get everybody on an MSA, paying a monthly fee, proactively maintaining them, whereas he was kind of going off in his own direction, just doing break fix and project work. And so ultimately, we ended up having to split the company into two. He ended up just taking kind of his customer base over on his own and continued to do what he was doing. And then I split off and took all of our customers that were on an MSA agreement, for example, and then grew from there. But it was, a good learning experience to basically realize that, if you're going to go into partnership with somebody in any company, but also starting an MSP, that you actually have the same vision for the company and that you're both on board with building the company in the same way, because otherwise it can create a lot of conflict. Ultimately, it turned out okay on my side, but it could have gone the other way very poorly, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, now you're completely in control of the MSP. Did you always know that you were going to sell? Like, was that your end goal getting into this? Like, hey, I want to get up to the point where I can make an exit.
Well, I think ultimately it always was at some point, but initially it wasn't necessarily something that I was primarily focused on. I was just happy to have an MSP and really loved working with my customers. And it really wasn't until a number of years went by when the CEO of CyberQP, who was a friend of mine since the early 90s in high school, kept kind of poking me to potentially build a product that I started to kind of really think about it a lot more. But initially, it was just mainly focused on growing the business and enjoying running it.
Yeah. So let's start diving into that conversation, right? So for those of you on the call, Matteo Barraza is the CEO and co-founder of CyberQP, formerly QuickPass. Talk about the story of, Matteo coming to you and you kind of talking about your struggles as an MSP, and how that ended up turning into what was QuickPass.
Yeah, I think that feeds well into Michael's question too in here about how what pain points did you bring from your MSP experience into CyberQP to create the product?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. So as I kind of mentioned, Matteo and I have been friends for quite a number of years. And in university, we were both into computer science. He ended up going into the software development side of things. I ended up going into the IT side of things, and we kind of went our separate ways. You know, he ended up working in the US for a bunch of large software companies as a software engineer, et cetera, and ultimately ended up opening up his own software development agency, which initially helped kind of build the initial product for QuickPass and CyberQP. But unfortunately, you know, on his side of it, you know, a lot of software developers have the technical skill to create products, but they don't necessarily know what to build. And that's obviously where I came in. So for quite a few years, he had kept bugging me about, hey, we got to build a product. We got to build a product, you know, just give me the idea. I'll take it over. And it wasn't really until I started having a lot of struggles with one of our largest customers, which was a large construction company that was a multinational company that we were managing the British Columbia region, which is BC and Canada on the West Coast, and also working with kind of them in a co-managed perspective. And the struggles that they were dealing with is we had a bunch of construction foremen because they were a paving company and infrastructure company for roads. And they would constantly, the parent company had these ridiculous password policies where they had to reset their password every 30 or 60 days or something like that. And we had foremen on the road with VPNs and, you know, these terrible Windows tablets. And so we would basically be fielding calls. I would say almost like half our days were filled with resetting passwords, unlocking accounts, helping them get back on their VPNs and connected, et cetera. And you know, it took up most of our time and also was very costly and made it so that it was difficult to be profitable with this customer. And also wasn't able to focus as much on our other customer base, which was also very important. The second thing that happened was that they ended up having a massive ransomware attack close to the time before we ended up exiting. And the reason for that attack was one of the technicians at their parent company that was located in a different region got their credentials swiped because they required that everybody have their own account, but then they never had anybody rotate their passwords, and then the accounts were always active all the time. So there was a lot of standing privilege, you know, amongst other things like, you know, bad backup practices and patching practices of the parent company. So those two main things ended up being the two main reasons or pain points why we started QuickPass and CyberQP, and that was the self-serve password reset solution that we originally came out with to make sure that end users could reset their own passwords and not have to call us and obviously take up all that time of ours. And the other thing was the automated pass rotation for admin accounts, right? Because in that ransomware attack, which ultimately cost the parent company quite a few millions of dollars, even though we had our customers or our region backed up with data and were able to recover successfully the weekend that it happened, they ended up having to destroy the whole network across the country, rebuild everything from scratch, spent you know, millions of dollars with Thales, the incident responders, and you know, it was just a massive headache, right? But if they just rotated their passwords, even if it was once every 30 days, likely they wouldn't have come into the issues that they did.
Yeah, no, I love hearing that story over and over again. How you kind of use the pain points at your MSP to really develop the products at QuickPass. And then fast forward, we became CyberQP, and a lot has changed. We've added a ton of functionality and features to our products and our stack. Why the rebrand? Why the name change to CyberQP? You know, what's with all the cheetah print and the spots? Can you kind of explain the idea behind the rebrand of CyberQP?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, originally when we came out with, you know, the first products, it was the self-serve password reset, which, you know, the name QuickPass actually was originally a second choice because the first choice it came out with, and we realized we had to change it, for copyright reasons was actually FastPass. For those of you who go to Disney, you know that they have the FastPass there. And so we ended up, landing on QuickPass, but it was really directed at that was the only product, right? Same thing with the pass rotation. It was specifically with passwords. And so, with the automated rotation, doing it daily kind of lended itself to that name. However, as we kind of moved along and we started to get more into the privileged access management side of things, as well as identity verification for end users calling the help desk, that the name wasn't necessarily fitting for, everything that we were doing. So we needed to kind of come up with a name that, represented kind of a more broader scope of things, but also kind of maintaining part of our heritage and having kind of the QP, which is really for quick pass at the end. And then the cheetah was mainly chosen because the cheetah is quick or fast, depending upon how you want to look at it. And it kind of fitted with, where we're trying to go with the company.
Absolutely. And I do have a couple Q&A questions. Can we hear a 30-second elevator pitch to introduce CyberQP to new customers who don't use these types of services currently? Let's hear your elevator pitch here.
All right. So we have two main product lines, which one is QDesk and QVerify, which are actually originally were only QDesk. One is for end user identity verification. The other is for the self-serve password reset and tier 0 and 1 account management. So the purpose of that product line is to make it so that is to deal with not only the social engineering threats that are hitting a lot of the help desks right now, where hackers are impersonating end users, calling a help desk, getting you to reset their password or deactivate MFA so that they can then go and obviously deploy ransomware and exploit the network. And that's now the problem's getting a lot worse due to AI and all those deepfake impersonations. So the whole concept of it is you can either provide them with a secure way to reset their own password with the self-serve solution. However, if they either don't have it or don't use it or don't want to use it and they call the help desk, you can verify their identity before you end up resetting their password, unlocking their account, sending them a password reset link, and having all those actions logged within the PSA service ticket so that the technician doesn't need to go somewhere else to do those activities. So there's definitely a myriad of benefits there. And then as well as you can do those things within the PSA with a lower cost resource, right? A tier 0 or tier 1 versus having your higher price technicians do it. And our other side of the company, which is more on the privileged access management side of things, is our QGuard product line. And as Robbie's probably going to show you a little bit of a sneak peek on it just in a little bit on what we have new going on there. The main purpose of that is to discover privileged accounts, to also manage them, and then also to providing things like rotating passwords for administrator accounts, service accounts. And then we also have the ability for you to implement what's called zero standing privilege with your admin accounts. And those are admin accounts that are either created or re-enabled on the fly when they're needed with the privilege added based on a policy, and then disabled when not in use. So it essentially makes it so that that target is really low. And there is also something new that we're going to be announcing quite shortly that kind of makes that just-in-time accounts process very early, but that's the sort of hopefully not too long elevator pitch there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jim. And the title of this webinar, How CyberQP Became a Leader in Privileged Access Management, right? There's a lot of other vendors in the PAM space at the moment. What makes CyberQP a complete PAM solution? And what really differentiates us, would you say?
Great question. So the main thing to kind of sort of consider when you talk about privileged access management is that there are a number of solutions in the enterprise, and this is quite a common occurrence with solutions that come down market to the MSP side of things, is that there are, this is privileged access management there's been solutions that have been around for quite some time, but it hasn't been a big enough problem in the small, medium-sized business space until the recent past for there to be solutions in the MSP space. Now, in most of those enterprise solutions, they've got whether you're talking about Delinea or CyberArk or whatever, they've been around for 15 years. So they've got these product suites that are just massive, right? They've got everything under the sun relating to, discovering privileged accounts, monitoring, controlling privileged access, controlling escalation, just-in-time accounts, rotation of passwords, rotations of service accounts, as well as alerting and monitoring. However, not all those things are necessarily critical or essential for MSPs. So what you've seen is in the MSP market, with some of the vendors that have kind of come out, is that they're kind of taking smaller segments of those PAM solutions that are in the enterprise, and then kind of only focusing on those as opposed to kind of the broader scope. So our goal with privileged access management, and where I kind of feel that this kind of separates us, is that we're not only looking at doing what we're already doing, which is, the discovery of privileged account, the rotation of past privileged credentials, the just-in-time accounts, and some of the things that we're going to announce here, but also going into those other areas as well to be a full-rounded, complete PAM solution versus just taking one little solution from the PAM landscape and only providing that. So,
Awesome.
I think the big thing too is like, one of the reasons why I came over here to CyberQP, it was quick pass at the time, is that we're solving the security problem, right? We're not just building these point solutions, to Jim's point. So we're looking at it from the attacker's point of view and saying, okay, how are the bad guys taking advantage of these privileged accounts, and like, what do MSPs need to protect themselves? So a lot of times it goes beyond just that end user elevation. So you can remove local admin, right? Like, it's knowing what admin accounts exist out there that can be attacked. It's rotating your service accounts. There's like a whole plethora of things that Jim laid out that are needed to really protect all of those privileged accounts, not just like one type of privileged account or another.
Yeah, great point there, Brian. Also really appreciate the questions coming in. Daniel is in the background, giving me live updates on who's in the winning for the next prize. So speaking of looking at it from an attacker's perspective, right, Brian? I think that leads us right into you. Let's talk about how your team, the information security team, has developed over the past year, and some new initiatives that you guys have implemented.
Yeah, for sure. So like most of the folks on the call, I've been here for almost, or like some of the other folks on the call, I've been here for about 2 years. We've made a lot of companies doubled in size since then. We've got a lot more partners we're supporting since then. We've added a ton of more capabilities, right? So my team has grown, and what we're providing has grown a bit. So initially we're really focused internally, hiring application security folks, pen testing our own products, really helping tighten up the security and making sure everything on our end is bulletproof, because we understand how sensitive and critical what we're doing for you folks is. So that was the initial focus. So we built out some capabilities internally that we'll touch on after this. But one thing that we launched late last year were these threat briefs. We realized for MSPs, you kind of needed a decoder ring. There's all this news and all these different threat information coming out for all these different hacks and breaches across the world. And there wasn't a lot of companies that were really helping translate how that impacts you and like what you need to do about it as an MSP, especially in the identity space. There was a lot of endpoint vendors out there who were like, hey, you need more EDR or stand up some XDR, MDR, whatever, right? Like all the DR acronyms, but there wasn't a lot of folks helping focus on like that initial access. Like 86% of the time, I think, is the statistic, is caused by people grabbing an account and using it. So and there's different ways to get that. So we started creating these threat briefs where we take this news that's out in the world and we're trying to boil that news down to something that's more actionable for you guys. So back to kind of the product side of things on our end, there's some of them around the help desk user impersonations, right? We saw the MGM breach. HHS just released an alert recently, an advisory saying, hey, look out for people impersonating users when they call your help desk. Don't reset their passwords, do some sort of verification. They were not recommending vendors because they're HHS, so they were just saying like you should have a process. But I think that this identity verification is really going to become table stakes for everybody. All those threat briefs are out on our website, on our blogs, so you can subscribe there, and as we release them, you can get notified. But and on top of there's older breaches too, like the NVIDIA breach. A lot of folks don't realize that came from the bad guys, the Lazarus group. They called NVIDIA's help desk and had a password reset for a new employee before they started, and that's how they gained their initial foothold. So back to that verification piece, that's why it's so important and why we've really focused a lot on that this year. And the other piece is about that credential-based access, like I had talked about. 86% of the breaches, the initial access is caused by credential compromise or using valid credentials. So we've got some briefs on that as well around there was 70 million accounts that were leaked in a password database where most of those passwords were new. There's a lot of folks out there called credential brokers where that category of bad guy, their job is just to collect and acquire credentials that they can then go sell to other people to infect you with malware, ransomware, expand their botnets, whatever. So those credential brokers, they're just there. Whether it's malware that's collecting credentials, whether they're phishing you, there's lots of different ways for them to gain access to your credentials, but that's one of the big risks that's out there for folks as well. And then obviously the SolarWinds folks are back in action, and the group that attacked SolarWinds a few years ago. But all this really surrounds a lot of these briefs, what we break down at the end is how to protect yourself from these threat actors and from these types of breaches. And one thing that's important to me is we're not just saying, hey, go buy CyberQP products, right? Like we're listing out all of the different controls that you can implement to help protect you from these breaches, because it's not always just a one vendor or one solution answer in a lot of these cases. So those are the threat briefs that we've continued to publish those. We probably do about, I don't know, one every week or two, get published out on our website. And we'll continue to keep our eye on news that's happening and release stuff that's relevant to you guys.
Yeah, so you can actually get these threat briefs sent right to your mailbox. There's a link in the chat sent by Daniel. Thank you very much. I also wanted to allow you to dive into our trust report, or our trust center.
So like I was saying, my first year here, we're really focused internally, right? We're like, hey, we need to double check everything, triple check everything, make sure that we've got the right processes, security in place. The company's growing, our customer base is growing. The services we're providing are critical to you guys and are very, it's important that they're secure. So every new feature we're releasing, we've got internal folks that are doing pen tests against those. We proactively test different component parts of our product. We're engaging third parties once a year to test our products. And then on top of that, we've got the Trust Center here that kind of lists out dynamically some of those controls that we're monitoring and keeping an eye on. And it also shows it's a place where you can come and get our SOC 2 Type 2 report, which details out the security controls that we have in place. And it really gives a lot of transparency to us as a vendor and how we're helping secure the services that you're trusting us to provide for you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the Trust Center link will pop up in the chat in just a few seconds. You guys can go browse in there. And now I want to hand it off to Robbie now. I'm very excited for this little portion of the birthday celebration. Some live stuff some features that have never been, done live before. Is that right? We're getting a exclusive little preview here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And as Jared said, you're probably one of the first to see this feature. So, and the first time I'm demoing it live. So excited to show that.
Yeah.
Just an overview, I'm going to show two things. Jim talked about our two product lines, QDesk and QGuard. I'll try to touch on both of those. But if you want to learn more, of course, you can reach out to us and book a demo for more details.
And
Yeah.
Robbie, I hate to interrupt, but I did promise our attendees here that I'd give away a prize after Brian's little segment
Right.
there. So got word from Daniel, and Mike Monterio is going to be the winner of our, let me get the name right here, Aviation 28 bottle compressor wine cooler refrigerator. So congrats to Mike. Yeah, there you go. You're welcome. You're very welcome, Mike. And I hate to interrupt you, Robbie. Let's get back into the good stuff.
No, that's good. Okay, let me just set it up. I'll share my screen then.
Awesome.
So the first product I'm going to show, this is the what we're talking about, new product. This is QGuard. So this is how we protect your privileged accounts. So what I have here is on one side, I have my phone, the iOS phone, and then on the other side, I've opened a remote session to an AD server. And now I'm going to show you how, with our new feature, how would you get access, a privileged access to this server in a secure way. And after that, we can talk about how this is better to some traditional methods. But before that, I'll first show you how this works. So on my phone, I have the QTech app installed. So this is our new mobile app for technicians, available for both iOS and Android. And when I go to login screen, I get a new option here, technician sign in. And all I need to do here is I'll type in my email that's registered with CyberQP. So it's the same email every time that I need to type in any endpoint I'm trying to get access to. And then what this does is it sends a push notification to my mobile app. So I'm already registered. And I go through the biometrics. If you quickly notice, here I can see all the details of this sign-in request. I can type in a reason. I say this is for ticket 4523, or I could type in why exactly I need this access. I can select the expiration. So I say I only need this access for 1 hour. And then I'll type in the code I see on the screen. So 26 in this case. This is just to prevent you from accidentally hitting on approve. And then from there, I hit on approve. And if you notice, I'm logged in. So what happened in the background? So it was as easy as that. You just need your email, which you always know, and all you do is approve from your mobile app. And if you notice the details on my mobile screen, this account's going to expire in 59 minutes. It's an administrator account. And after 59 minutes, this account's going to get disabled. The admin privilege is going to be removed, and the password is going to be rotated. The next time I need it, I again go to the login screen and get a new request. So this is using just-in-time accounts in the background, and these are specific to who is logged in. So they're a lot more secure than the traditionally shared admin accounts that you would use.
So just as to step in here, as for people that don't know or aren't familiar with our just-in-time accounts feature that we had before, the purpose of that was to allow you to stop sharing admin accounts to prevent, when you have issues like with technician turnover, or if that shared account gets breached, now you have to shut down all your access to a particular customer. So our just-in-time account system creates dedicated admin accounts for each tech automatically for you. But we keep those accounts disabled when they're not in use. So after that time frame expires. However, one of the challenges that we were having when you were just using it on its own was that you still had to copy credentials. You had to go to our dashboard, enable it, copy the credentials, paste them in your remote control solution, log in, which wasn't necessarily the quickest process. So what we really wanted to do was to not only make that process faster, but also more secure, because as most people know, even if you're using just-in-time accounts, that doesn't necessarily give you MFA, or it doesn't. So our customers were either using perhaps Duo or some other MFA product, but we wanted to be able to give you an all-in-one solution that not only gave you the just-in-time accounts, also a better login experience or smoother login experience, but also added MFA. And then at the very end, we also, people are trying to get rid of passwords. They don't want to have to worry about passwords. So the whole point of this is to offer a passwordless experience for the technician. So they don't even need to know what the password is. It doesn't need to be shared with them. And all their access to these accounts is secured through our platform and with our phishing resistant app as well. So it kind of ticks a lot of those boxes, which, from our perspective, kind of is a welcome addition to the way the market is, the industry is moving by going passwordless and obviously needing to add MFA, but also phishing resistant MFA.
Yep. Yeah. Phishing resistant was what I wanted to touch on. You grabbed it. So it's perfect. Like a lot of other solutions out there for JIT aren't making it phishing resistant. So for us, it was really important to make sure that this feature was easy to use and very secure, right? Like that's the holy grail for any of these things, is making it so people want to use it because it's easier than the way they were doing it. And by following this new process that's phishing resistant, they're also significantly more secure than they were before.
Another question. Will we have access to this if we have just in time, or will it be an additional cost?
So maybe I'll answer that real quick here. So if you're already a current customer of QGuard, you will have access to the product. We are officially kind of splitting out the product into QGuard and QGuard Pro. But all existing customers for at least the next 6 months or so will all get that at no additional cost.
And then also, will this feature be available in the AutoTask PSA or only via the app?
Good question. So the difference is that if you're looking at the passwordless MFA, that the flow of that starts by the technician going to the login screen, right, and going login as technician, and then using the app to approve it. The approach that we're going to be most likely taking is having an option in the mobile app to tie it back to a ticket, to be able to then select the ticket, that you might already have open, and then it'll then add the information to say that, so-and-so created this just-in-time account, or it was re-enabled with this privilege for this amount of time, so that you have those logging records. The other part of it is if you weren't using the passless MFA and you were just using the just-in-time accounts, from that perspective, we had gotten requests for people to have the just-in-time accounts accessible from within the PSA pod that we have, which we still see a world where that area works. But when you're using the passless MFA, for example, it's just an easier flow to go right to the login screen and then have the app just revert back to the ticket. But if you weren't using it, it actually makes it an easier flow if you're able to re-enable it from within the service ticket. We're likely going to be doing both, but most likely we're going to be tying in via the mobile app first, and then later adding into the PSA.
All right. I'll show a few more things. So you can fully control your just-in-time accounts from here. If your ticket is taking more time, you can also increase the time and say, I need 4 more hours. Other cool thing is if you're done early, you could simply hit on disable account, and it will disable your account. Not only disables, it logs you out of your session. So that's another benefit of being able to do all that just from the mobile app.
Yep. Can I also add a little bit too, Robbie? Is one thing that is really important to us from a security perspective as we were building this is there's other solutions out there for JIT that are creating these JIT accounts, and then you end up with like the whole idea is to have 0 standing privileges and have like a smaller attack surface for the bad guys to go against, right? So one thing that was important for us is not only do we disable the account, but we're stripping away those admin permissions that were added to the account, and we're rotating the password. So even if the technician had grabbed that password, they can't re-enable the account and then use that password. And even if someone re-enables the account and resets the password, it's not a member of those privileged groups anymore. So there's a lot of steps that someone would need to do in order to reuse these accounts maliciously. At that point, it's just as easy to create a brand new account if you're a bad guy. So we really put a lot of thought into how we were developing this and trying to make it so it would be much harder for an attacker to take advantage of these accounts.
Yeah, so and another cool thing I want to show is so many is I could also create accounts. So when I create account, actually I could create account across all my customers on any system like Azure account, Active Directory account, local account. In future, we'll add other identity providers too, like Google and similarly. So for you, it's a pretty simple one place where you manage your privileged access. And creating an account is as simple as just selecting the directory, and then I choose the local. I get all the workstations from that customer that are available, and I could simply just very quickly create an account there. So that's the passwordless MFA, the phishing resistant. This is very close to launch. I would say next week will be available to everyone. And if you're on our QGuard plan, you'll be able to start using it. And this would, if you're already using our just-in-time accounts, you don't need to change anything. This will work with all your existing Git accounts. It just takes away manually having to go enable and copy credentials for those. We'll do it all for you.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why we offer the options of the local, the AD or the Azure AD is not just so you can manage those different environments, but a lot of what we saw was people were only creating local JIT accounts so they could work on a workstation or a server to repair it. But that circumvented some of your MDR capabilities, right? If you're leveraging a vendor that's collecting those Azure AD logs for you, you don't want to have all of those authentication logs for your admin only local, right? You'd want to make sure your technicians are using Azure AD accounts so that way that account usage is being monitored by your MDR vendor. So it gives you the flexibility to create policies that requires your technicians to use the type of account that you know you're going to be monitoring with your monitoring capabilities.
We've got more here. Jared,
Oh, okay. Sorry.
are you sharing or am
going to show something else?
Oh, I was gonna, I'm gonna show QDesk. We showed QGuard, which is privileged accounts. I'm gonna show QDesk, which is help desk, automation and security. So for that, it won't take too long. How we're doing on time, Jared?
We're good. We're good. Keep it rolling.
Okay. So next I'm going to show QDesk. So for that, I'm going to show an example of our Autotask integration. So I'm in Autotask, I'm a help desk. I received a ticket to reset my password, or this could very well be where account is logged and you're reaching out, an end user is reaching out. So what the experience looks like for a help desk technician. So when they open the ticket, I have the integration set up. So and this came from Alejandro, right? And this is CyberQP integration. I have full details of Alejandro's account here, and I could service this ticket directly from here. Of course, what I'll do first is I'll verify the identity. I'll be able to, through an SMS or email, send a code that they verify. And I first verify their identity. Once I've confirmed it's actually the person whose account it is, then I can go ahead and do all the actions from here. I could reset their password. I could also send them a link. They can reset their password on their own. I could also do like unlock an account if their account was logged, or enable, disable the account. So I could perform all the actions from here and then close the ticket and not have to go switching between the tools. And as you notice here, all the actions that are taken through the integration are logged on the ticket. When a verification request is sent, it's approved. After that, a password was reset. So you have a full log of anything that happened on the ticket. So that's just a sneak into what the QDesk product does. I'll stop there. If you have any questions, we can take those, and I'll hand it back to Jared.
I think there was a couple of questions that were in the middle of the main chat that I just saw right now. So I'm not sure if we answered it. One was, could you block the user also and not just change the password while it is idle? So I think so one of the things that we actually do, that I think Brian mentioned already, was we not just disable the account within AD or local, but we also, I guess, what is the right term? We make it so that you can't even, we expire the account. So if any of you are familiar with that operation within Active Directory, and you can also do it via command line and a local account, is you can expire the account, which means even if somebody had the password and it was enabled, and there was no MFA, they still couldn't access the account. So we do that, and then when we re-enable it, we reset that expiry. So it's just another additional security control on that. Another person
it's I'll add there, it's especially useful, like some people had concern, oh, what if your agent is offline? So even if our agent lose contact, the expiration is set on the device, on the directory, so it would still expire and would not be used to log into the system.
Yep. Yeah. So if you had a malicious insider or somebody where they're like, hey, I'm gonna grab admin rights to this domain controller and I'm gonna cut off CyberQP or cut off the network, then it still would disable the account.
Yeah, and then there was one other question related to, can you use the same procedure for the UAC prompt, like running an install? So, I mean, you could, in a sense, from the just-in-time accounts perspective, but I think what you're more referring to is an end user elevation control type of solution there, which is something that we have under consideration right now. And we have a survey currently for any of our existing partners that's in our tenant, asking sort of key questions on what are the most important features on that for our consideration of developing that feature. So that's about what I can share at this point.
Yeah. So on this slide here, right, for the last prize, the last giveaway, we're actually giving away a monitor extender. So it's going to be a double monitor extender, right? Going to have 2 screens on either side of your laptop. This is great for anyone who travels while they work, or maybe you have a makeshift setup for a while. Definitely wish I could have one of these when I'm traveling to Kaseya Connect IT next week. I love working on an extra screen. But the way to win that is, if you're a partner, go ahead and book some time with your partner success manager. You can do that on the right-hand side with the little red QR code. And if you're a prospect, if you are not currently a CyberQP partner, you liked what you see, and you are interested in that monitor extender, feel free to scan the QR code on the left-hand side. You'll also receive 10% off our solutions. What we're going to do is follow up with everyone, announce the final prize winner, and then also send you guys a recording afterwards. If there are any last questions, though, feel free to ask our panelists. If you want, any MSP advice from Jim, we've got some, SOC 2 Type 2 advice from Brian, maybe some any type of product advice from Robbie. But if there are any last questions, we'll take them. Other than that, really appreciate you all joining us for our first birthday celebration. I'm sure we'll be back next year too, when we turn 2 years old.
All right.
Any thoughts from you all? Happy birthday. Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks everybody. It's great. Great questions and engagement.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. You all take care. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.